Okay, in this short video, we're talking about the pressure sustaining valve. Most of our pressure sustaining valves look something like this. If you have like a 4-inch or a 6-inch or something like that, it may be a stainless steel one. But most of them look about like this. They have a little adjustment here on the top for a screwdriver. And the function of the pressure sustaining valve is just what it says. Its job is to create a back pressure through the system. We need to have a certain amount of pressure in the system in order to be able to get ozone into solutions. That's a lot of what's wrapped up in the function of the pressure sustaining valve. It's almost always going to be installed between the outlet of the filters and the holding tank. If you don't have filters, it would be between the outlet of the contact tank and the holding tank. So again, another way to think about that is the water that's recirculating that's going back to the holding tank, this is the last thing that water will pass through before it goes back to the holding tank to finish that recirculating loop. So just a couple quick considerations. Again, as I said, this is typically installed between the filter set, if you have filters, most people do, and the holding tank. With our technology, we've built in the ability to do some things as far as cleaning and supplying ozonated water to your growing rooms. Is not for irrigation. So highly ozonated water that can be used for surface disinfection, wiping down tables, foliar sprays on plants, but this would be, again, water that's not being used for traditional irrigation purposes. Any of those lines that you may run to your rooms that fall under the umbrella of what I just described would need to come off of this section of plumbing before the pressure sustaining valve. So in other words, after the filters and before the pressure sustaining valve. So if this is the line coming into your pressure sustaining valve from the filters, the line to fertigation, for example, would need to come off before the pressure sustaining valve. And the reason that is remember, we're creating a back pressure all the way behind this. And so what that does is that allows our pump to pressurize your fertigation system if that's the design. Most of our designs work that way. And so again, this gives you a constantly available pressurized line to fertigation. And this is a mechanical valve. So when you use water at fertigation, if there's not enough flow or pressure to both recirculate through this valve and to go to fertigation, this valve throttles down so that water then goes to fertigation. When you stop using water, pressure will increase in the line again, and then water will start recirculating through this pressure sustaining valve. So again, all those things have to be installed. Any line that would come off, that would go to any other part of your facility, whether it's the loop I described, whether it's fertigation, no matter what it is, has to come off before the pressure sustaining valve, so between the filters and the pressure sustaining valve. Just one other special consideration. Occasionally, you may need to adjust the pressure on your pump skid, maybe decrease the pressure a little bit depending on what's going on. If you do that, you'll want to consider possibly adjusting the pressure on the pressure sustaining valve. If you get into a situation where, for example, if the pressure sustaining valve is set to, let's say 40 psi, that's a pretty standard setting. If it's set to 40 psi, but your pump skid is also set to 40 psi, this has a certain cracking pressure, typically about 5 psi. So if those are set the same, you're not going to be able to recirculate water because your pressure sustaining valve is going to stay closed. So what we generally recommend is that the pump skid setting will be about 5, maybe just a little higher, but at least 5 psi higher than the setting on the pressure sustaining valve. And that's so, again, you have enough pressure to open this valve. Typically, when we supply these and send these, there'll be an additional part of this manifold with a pressure gauge so that you know exactly what the pressure is coming into the pressure sustaining valve. So again, that's just a consideration that we see come up every once in a while, and we want you to keep in mind.